Well, the JFK files have been released, and now the two-shooter theory that has intrigued so many people along the way over the past 60 years, in my opinion, is now more supported than ever. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I found in the buildup to that moment in Dallas, on the grassy knoll, in the motorcade, all of this stuff that points to the fact that, yes, I now believe more than ever that there was two shooters. Now, there's some interesting characters here that I want to kind of summarize in some of these files and some of the things that have kind of vindicated a lot of people for many, many years, and also some things that will leave more questions out there. Now, of course, there's a lot more pages left to be digitized and released. So, of course, I want to hear your opinion, though, too, no matter if you agree or disagree. Let's go and jump right in. So there's some main players, right, that we need to look at: JFK and the CIA, Cuba, and Oswald. There's also some characters here that I had never heard before, right? I guess maybe I didn't look at it close enough, but this is some really, really interesting stuff here. So let's go ahead and just cover Oswald really quick and get his part out of the way. Now, this is a guy that, he was in the Marines, and essentially he was known as Oswald Kovich, right? He was always spouting off this Soviet propaganda type of stuff, and people in his unit knew where his loyalties lies, and it wasn't to the US. So he moves to Europe, then he goes to Russia, he marries a Russian woman. Okay, he comes back to the United States. Now, his movements are being tracked for like 4 years prior to the assassination. James Angleton was actually looking at Oswald because of his connections to Russia, some of the things that he was doing, going back and forth, and so he was already on their radar. And the movements of Oswald and the things he did before the assassination are interesting, right? He went to Mexico City and visited the Soviet and the Cuban consulate down there, and supposedly he wanted to join the revolution in Cuba. Now, what's interesting is along the way, there's this KGB operative called Nikonov, and he looks into KGB ties with Oswald, and he's convinced there are no ties there. And he says something interesting. He says that Oswald is a terrible shot. He was doing target practice in Russia, and he just was like, dude, very unimpressive. Now, something else interesting that I found out about Oswald is he was actually like a marksman, a sharpshooter, in the military when he first came in, but then the next time he went to go score, he was actually dropped down a little bit. I think initially he had a score 212, then it dropped down to 190. According to that, it's not like he was a terrible shot, but in Russia, this guy Nikonov said, actually, he was a pretty terrible shot. And for kind of obvious reasons, that's an interesting point to make about him. So he's being tracked by the CIA. We know he has ties to Russia. He has a Russian wife. He's going to the consulate. He's trying to join the revolution in Cuba. And some of this information is being brought to the top people at the Secret Service. Secret Service is like, okay, no big deal. Now, he's inherited this Bay of Pigs invasion from Eisenhower. That fails miserably. But of course, JFK pulls air support for the invasion at the worst time possible. CIA is not happy about that. There's Operation Mongoose. There's actually over 600 attempts towards Fidel Castro to assassinate him, right? During his whole life, there was over 600 known attempts. In the U.S., through Operation Mongoose and the Bay of Pigs invasion and many more things, have actually tried to overthrow that government and take Fidel Castro out. None of it, of course, was successful. The CIA wasn't really a fan of JFK's policies. And there's also the link between Oswald and the CIA as well, where he had multiple dealings with people that were CIA operatives. There was one guy, George de Mohrenschildt, I probably screwed that up, but this guy actually in Texas, this was from 61 to 63. He was an older guy, way older than Oswald, but essentially George was arrested by the FBI in 1941 for spying on and sketching a naval base in Texas. They accused him of working with the Axis, essentially. His ties to guys down in New Orleans, David Ferry, who flew planes for the CIA and for the Mafia. Guy Bannister, who worked with the FBI and was a naval intelligence officer, and also Clay Shaw, who is the only person that was ever arrested in connection with the assassination of JFK. Oswald had dealings with all three. When Oswald got a visa, right behind his visa was a former CIA employee named William Goddard. So through these files that have been released, we've seen that the CIA was involved in a lot more plots to overthrow and eliminate higher-ups in foreign governments. Not just the multiple attempts in Cuba, but all across the world. And JFK ended up firing a guy named Allen Dulles. And you may say, okay, what does that mean? Well, Allen Dulles was head of the CIA in 1961. After the failed Bay of Pigs invasion, JFK fired him. Guess who was on the Warren Commission to investigate the assassination of JFK? Allen Dulles. We are talking about an American intelligence agency that has one of the most severe cases of corruption that I've ever seen. I think this goes way beyond even what people like, nobody, people that just would never believe that this thing was actually covered up. Those people now have to look at it and be like, there's just too much evidence here to point to a CIA cover-up, in my opinion. Why would they hide this for 60-something years? And in the 90s, the bill was signed to finally release all the JFK files, which meant in 2017 they should all have been released. And they still haven't all been released just yet. We're just now seeing the majority of them, and there's still some to be released. And it's not just to cover up, how you do business. Yes, there was personal information and stuff in these files. By the way, these files are an absolute nightmare. If you tried to comb through them, there's like ink that's faded now. Some of them are just really hard to read. And like there's no organization to them. So anyways, there's a lot of people going through them that we all appreciate that are getting some of this information for sure. But I tried going through them. Some of these people, there's like code names for people, and if you don't know who the people are, then it's just a ton. There's a lot to it. So anyways, why would the CIA keep this wrapped up so tightly for so long? In my opinion, they had something to do with it. Now here's the other part that is absolutely chilling. One of the biggest reveals from these documents yet. The story of John Underhill, which is a very troubling, maybe one of the most troubling parts of this release. And so John Underhill is like this intelligence officer during World War II. He's got ties to the intelligence community and very well respected. He's also got ties to Inter-Armco owner or founder Samuel Jennings. Well, Inter-Armco is the same people that supply the CIA with weapons and the sporting goods store, Klein's Sporting Goods in Chicago, which is where Oswald got his Carcano rifle from. Now, Underhill, who was, like I said, respected, was very level-headed according to colleagues, came to a friend's house the day after the assassination. And his friends described him as sober but shook. And he told them that the CIA was behind the assassination, and he was actually afraid for his own life because of things that he knew. He said the CIA and this clique, basically in the CIA, was involved in gun running, contraband, all kinds of illegal stuff that this CIA clique was involved in. Guess what? 6 months later, John Underhill Epsteined himself. Very convenient. So all of this points to the day in Dallas. Now, there's been reports of the route being changed. I couldn't find anything to conclusively tell me that route was changed. If anybody has that, I think it'd be quite interesting to see that. But I couldn't find anything that was super conclusive that the route was changed. But when we look at how all of this played out, and of course, there's only so much I can show you here, but you guys have seen the video and you can find it. It's very easy to find. The problem here is, of course, the magic bullet, right? The single bullet theory that was found on the gurney that Connolly was on, just nearly in perfect shape. And so if bullets can do some really weird things when they hit bone and muscle and tissue and all that kind of stuff. They can bounce, they can tumble. They do some crazy stuff. But even when people have recreated this with lasers and cameras and everything else, it's so hard to line up Connolly and JFK. Nearly impossible. You'd have to move JFK over like 1.5 feet, according to one report. in order to line all of this up. And again, bullets can do some crazy things when they hit bone and flesh and all that, but the bullet was in such immaculate shape. That's one of the first things that just screams to me, like, how, right? After going through JFK and then into Conley, it doesn't make sense. What also doesn't make sense is the direction. Now, I get entry and exit wounds, right? And when you see that shot, that terrible shot from the grassy knoll there, it obviously looks like an exit wound, but his head goes back and to the left towards Jackie. That doesn't make sense to me, right? If you're hit from behind, you would go forward. If you're hit from the front, your head would go back. This almost looks like it was played in reverse or something like that. Like, right? A lot of these videos that I watch sometimes, I'm like, is this played in reverse somehow? And like, there's this kind of trick being played on us. It's just the feeling I get, because it's like, if it comes from the back, the entrance wound would come through the front. That makes sense. But why is his head going the opposite direction? That doesn't make sense. And then, Oswald being reported on as being a bad shot. And, he was, 88 feet away, or 88 yards away. 3 shots with a Carcano, bolt action. Okay, yes, you can fire 3 shots in fairly rapid succession, right? If somebody that's trained, but for somebody that's a poor shot, shooting at a moving target, reloading, getting lined back up, and then the second and third shots hitting, that's a pretty tall task, I might say. And for a poor shot, or according to Nikonov, who said he was a poor shot, you would think that he would have probably been better off doing it a little bit closer, starting the shots a little bit closer. He didn't, is what it is. I understand why you do them going away, because now Secret Service, police, everything, all the attention is in what's in front of you. But still, I don't know that I buy that. And with JFK and the friction that's going on with the CIA, by the way, JFK supposedly knew about a CIA plot against him, but of course he was taken out before he had a chance to do any of this. So with all of this added up, in my opinion, there has to be either another shooter or the CIA was absolutely involved. And to put this on just Oswald, I just don't know if I think that's right. There's just too many pieces here that involve the CIA, the friction between JFK and the CIA. And this is the same agency that is sending hundreds, 1,500 people overseas in order to overthrow and have coups against governments and overthrow governments, cutting diplomatic ties to countries so other leaders can be assassinated. It is just insane to me to think that it was just one guy, right? And they knew about him, but nothing more than that. I just don't buy it, and I don't buy that there was only one shooter. And so there's a lot left to go through. There's a lot more information left to be sifted through. But that's just my opinion, and of course I want to hear yours. Let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one, and as always, hold them down.